Hi, good afternoon. Here is help on how to determine the slope and the y-intercept for problems that are featured on the coordinate plane. Now, for the first problem, we have 2 points, 0, comma, -5, and 3, comma, -1. And we always go from left to right because sort of like how we read in the English language, we read from left to right. So our first point, 0, comma, -5, that is where we start counting, and then we need to figure out first how far up and down we go. So that is our change in y. So either we go down or we go up. And in this case, so what we'll do is the following. So for the slope, change in y over change in x. So that's for both 1 and 2. So regarding the change in y for problem number 1, we start at the point on the left, which in this case, 0, comma, -5. And our change in y, we go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So we went up 4 spots. So whenever we go up, that's positive. So positive 4 is our change in y. And then to determine our change in x, we go 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. So anytime we go to the right, that's a plus 3. So our change in x will be plus 3. And in this case, we can leave our slope as an improper fraction. That is fine. And since 4 over 3 does not simplify into a smaller fraction, we're going to leave it as 4 over 3, or positive 4 over positive 3, but we don't need the plus signs here. But that would be the way to determine the slope for the first problem. And then similarly, for your second problem, we'll do for the slope, our first point, 0, comma, 1. So we're going to start at 0, comma, 1. And now we see that we go down. We go down 1, 2. So we go down 2 spots from positive 1 to -1. So our change in y will be 2, but since we're going down, that will be a -2. Then for our change in x, we start at the how far we went down, then we go to, in this case, to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we went 4 spots to the right, or positive 4 spaces to the right. So our slope is -2 over positive 4. That's our change in y. Now, since we divide a positive by a negative, our overall result will be negative. We're going to keep our negative sign. And then we notice we can simplify our fraction to 2 over 4. So first we take care of our signs. We see the negative divided by positive, keep the negative. And then 2 over 4, we can divide both 2 by 2 and 4 by 2. And our result, 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. And 4 divided by 2 gives us 2. And then we keep our negative sign, as negative divided by positive is negative. So our slope is -2 over positive 4 is the same as -1 over 2. And we do have to simplify a fraction. But that will be the slope for problem 2. Now, for the y-intercept for both problems, this is where our graph crosses the y-axis. So that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Where does the graph cross the y-axis? We need to ask ourselves, so for both 1 and 2, where does the graph cross the y-axis? So if we look at our first problem, our y-axis, that's the one that goes up and down. And we see that our graph crosses the y-axis at the point 0, -5. So our y-intercept is 0, -5. So that is our y-intercept. So we have to determine where our graph crosses y-axis. And then for number 2, similarly, again, look at our y-axis. And we see, in this case, this graph crosses the y-axis at our point 0, 1. So I should highlight the y-axis. We see that our point of the y-intercept is 0, 1. That's where our graph crosses y-axis when y is equal to 1. So our y-intercept for this problem is 0, 1. So the y-intercept, x is always 0. So always, 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 if need be. That's the other part of the hint. X always equals 0. So that's always something to think about when you want to determine the y-intercept. X, the first value, is always 0. Now, regarding problems 3 and 4. Now, the slope, just like before. So look at our change in y over the change in x. Now, for these problems, the change in y over the change in x may not look the same, but when you simplify your slope, the change in y over the change in x, in the end, your result will be the same. So let's look at our first problem. Now, we first see from -2 to 0, you go up, your change in x is 2. But notice from 0 to 3, okay, we went up 3. And then similarly, we went up 3 from 3 to 6. And from 6 to 8, we went up 2. Now for the y's, we originally went from 10 to 4, so that's actually a change. -6 is our change because we went 10 minus 6 is 4. Now be careful, this is the trickiest one of the trickiest. From 4 to -5, we actually went down 9. Because from +4 to -5, we went down a total of 9 steps. Similarly, from -5 to -14, again, we went down 9 steps. The last one, -14 to -20, we only went down 6 steps. But now you're wondering, okay, I see a change in y. My change in y was first -6 over +2. Now, if we divide -6 over +2, the overall result is -3. Oops, forgot my negative sign. Similarly, from -9, that was our change, and we went -9 divided by +3. That's also equal to -3. So you could say -3 over 1, but since 1 is the denominator, we can just, in the end, -6 over +2, or -9 over +3 is the same as -3 over 1, because for this case, -6 and -2 are both divisible by 2, so you're left with -3, +1, and then -9, +3 are both divisible by 3. So we're left with -3 over +1. So in the end, the slope for problem number 3, it's -3 over 1, but since we don't need the 1 in the end, we can just say -3 is our slope. For the y-intercept, the key is, like before, what do we have an x value of 0? Is there an x equals 0 entry? Or is there an x equals 0 value? So, therefore, if there is an x equals 0 value, highlight it. Because for this problem, if there's an x equals 0 value, then you will automatically have your y-intercept. Your y-intercept takes place when you have x equals 0, and then your y value will be part of your y-intercept. So in this case, your y-intercept will be 0, 4. Now this last one, it's similar to the previous, where you need your change in y, divide by change of x. So in this case, I know this working sort of from right to left. If we look at our change in y, we first see that from 5 to 13, we go up 8. But now we see that from 13 to 25, it's up 12. 25 to 33, that's up 8. And then from 35 to 45, we go back up 12. For the x's, we originally go up 2 to 4. So that's plus 2. But notice from 4 to 7, we go up by 3. 7 to 9, that's only up 2. Then from 9 to 12, we go up 3. Well, now we look. So we look at our change in y, which in the first change is 8 over our first change in x, which is 2. So we notice 8 divided by 2, overall change will be 4. Then we need to look at what happened for this second change. So this is for the first change. We notice for the first change we went. And then for the second change, we go 12 divided by 3. So we have to look into account the same change from each level. Now 12 divided by 3 is also 4. So for this problem, even though it looks like the change in y and x are different, but the overall slope change turned out to be the same. So your slope for problem 4 is just positive 4. So that's the overall slope. So our change in y over change in x, so given is an overall change of 4. That's our slope. So our slope for problem 4 is 4. Now, for the y-intercept, this will be a little tricky because we don't necessarily see an x equals 0 value. However, we can work backwards. So we noticed when we went up from 2 to 4, it was 2 spots. But now, what if we went back 2? So we want to go from 0 to 2, which in this case, 0 is here. From 0 to 2, we would go down, or we would go up 2. From 0 to 2, we would go up 2, or in this case, since we're going backwards from 2 to 0, we would go 2 minus 2 would give us 0. Similarly, if we went backwards, okay, we notice our first change, if our first change was 2 for x, then our change in y was 8. But if we go backwards from 2 to 0, that's negative 2. We also have to go backwards from 5. So we would have to do 5 minus 8. So 5 minus 8 gives us negative 3. So for this problem, originally going down the table, we added. But if we're going in reverse, we would have to, in this case, subtract. So rather than adding 8, we're going to go 5 minus 8 to give us the negative 3, because we went from positive 2, so subtract 2, we get to 0. And now we have our y-intercept for our last problem. So our last y-intercept will be, now we have our x value of 0, and our y value will be negative 3. So our y-intercept is 0, comma, -3.